On Horse Chats today,
If you have
we've
an
got
interest in
Mel
horses
Rowe.
and
So
love
Mel's
learning more
another
about
Equitana
horses, the horse
educator.
industry,
She's going to talk about
teaching,
Melt
or even managing
Lymphatics
your own
and
horse
along the
business,
lines of horse
then you're
health
in
and
the right
horse
place.
care. So
We
I'd
would
love
love
to
you to join
introduce you
us
to
on our
Mel,
mission,
but
which
before
is to
we do
improve the
that, I'd
lives of
just like to
horses
remind
around the
you that if
world
you'd like to
through
work
the
in the horse
education of
industry,
riders,
but not
handlers,
sure
and
where to
trainers.
start,
So
then
get
have a
comfortable,
chat to the
listen
friendly
in,
team
and enjoy.
at internationalhorsecollege.com. With the wide variety of horse courses from the complete beginner to qualified professional and students in over 20 countries, we'll be able to consider your individual requirements and guide you in the right direction. Simply go to internationalhorsecollege.com now to start the conversation. Registered training organisation 31352. Now, Mel, we've got Mel here from Melt Lymphatics. Mel, welcome to Horse Chats.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a wonderful chance to meet you and see how podcasts are done. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Mel, before we get started, I'd like to tell people a little bit about you. So Mel's an equine therapist. She's passionate about lymphatic therapies for horses, and she's teaching manual equine lymphatic drainage. And I don't think we've had an equine lymphatic drainage specialist on the show before. So she does lymphatic drainage, taping and therapy tools for therapists and owners. She's self-employed, so her position or role within the business is, she said, it's just me. So anything that's needed is just me. But before we get started, Mel, we've got a quote. And you know that I love quotes, and I think it really shows the character of a person. In a short summary, if you can give me a quote, and it might be something inspirational, something you say to yourself, what have you got for us today?
Well, I think it's an oldie, but it's a goodie. And we mainly refer to it as the man in the arena. And it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, sweat, and blood, who strives for validity, who errs, who becomes short again and again. And because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end of triumph and high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails by daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither knew victory nor defeat. And that was by Theodore Roosevelt.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. And I love the quote. You know, it probably reflects a lot of Equitana educators, particularly if they're there for the first time and they've not done, any public speaking, but they know their job, they're good at their job, they are an educator, they are telling people and they want to spread the word about what they do to help with horses, but they're worried. They're worried there's going to be someone laughing at them in the back corner, or they're worried that, something's going to happen, or someone's going to tape it or record them, and then they're not going to be able to back it up, or they're going to do a slip up. So I think that, I'm an experienced Equitana educator, so I don't fall into that basket, but there's still this little bit of a, thinking, oh, I hope it all goes well. I hope I don't make too much of a fool of myself. And I think that, we've really got to support the educators. And, if you go into a room and you see someone who's just there and a bit nervous and a bit fumbling, do what you can to just make them a bit more confident. Sit at the front of the room and be attentive and, smile or clap or do something that reflects what they're saying. And I think that'll make them not just be more confident and a better speaker for Equitana, but it will give them more confidence to go on then and spread the word about, and a lot of it's about horse welfare, horse care, safety, things like that, but how they can spread their word and make the world a better place for horses.
I think that's a really wonderful thing to say. This will be my first Equitana and my first experience public speaking, and to know that others are completely aware of how I'm going to be feeling and that these emotions are okay to feel. I think that's a really wonderful thing. So thank you for letting me know that it's okay. And I think that quote brings so many horse people together because all of our arenas are so different. It's how we conduct ourselves personally and with our horses. And it's so easy to be a critic. And it's so easy to say what should have, would have, could have. been done. But, when you start to really take big personal leaps like Equitana, that's not just a place to professionally excel, but personally have a huge opportunity to grow. Quotes like that kind of get you through the day. And it's wonderful. So many people relate to it.
I know this is your first podcast, but you're not the only person who's come on that's an Equitana educator who's saying, oh, this is my first podcast, so we've had a few first timers on. Now, I'm really excited about exploring the lymphatic system, like you sort of have a base knowledge, you know about lymphangitis and, the treatment and symptoms and what we should do to help prevent it, but I don't know enough, and I'm sure that you're the expert, and I'm really looking forward. And I don't think I've had a guest on here, I think I've said that's done this sort of work before, so I'm excited to talk to you. But before we actually start that, just tell us a little bit about how you came involved, what sparked your interest within this particular area with horses?
I was a remedial therapist, and, we get to do a lot of different courses when you are a remedial therapist. And I was continually drawn to lymphatics, and it was just my favourite modality to apply. And it's still to this day, I will always be learning more about the lymphatic system. And I made the change to treat horses. I never thought I was going to treat horses. I did the courses, and I had a great time. I loved it. And then when I made the switch from treating humans to horses, I just kept continually seeing these horses that we could apply different techniques of treatment. If we supported the lymphatic system, then they would recover easier. It's more of a gentle technique. So horses that are really sensitive, instead of forcing them to relax into a treatment, let's look at different options. And it was just this part of, I felt, was missing with my treatments. And so when I very first looked into treating horses, you couldn't learn manual lymphatic drainage unless you were a vet and you went to study in Germany. And I continually kept persevering and searching for ways I could help make this a reality without going to Germany and becoming a vet. And I was very lucky. I was accepted into a course in the US, and this lady had also experienced the same sort of passion for horses and the lymphatic system. So I went over there and I trained, and I've come back to Australia. And not only have I had to learn the hard way about running a business and doing all those sorts of things, but getting a whole new modality out across the country.
Yeah, I think there's something to say about that perseverance. And, I think that anyone that's successful within the horse industry, they've had a certain amount of perseverance. So, good on you for continuing.
Thank you. It's come with many tears and many mixed emotions when you're seeing people your age with such career highs. And, therapies seem to bring out, quick success. And so this is a very slow burn, but I just find I'm getting more and more passionate and finding the right people to talk to and learning better ways to help explain, the therapies that we can do and what the lymphatic system is. So it's certainly a different feeling of purpose, I guess you could say, in the industry. But the passion that we have in the equine industry as a whole is just unlike anything other. It's the best feeling.
Absolutely. Totally agree. And I think that the majority of people will say it's a lifestyle industry, it's a lifestyle job. It's like what you'd be doing as a hobby anyway if you had another job. So you may as well just do it as a job and lifestyle. And, yeah.
I wish you could have told my parents that when I was younger.
I had a guidance officer when I was at school, and I told him I wanted to work in the horse industry. And he said to me, doesn't matter what you do because girls just grow up and get married and never work again anyway. So I went, great, I can do whatever I like and just work for me. Yeah. So, no stop for me. I was in labour. My waters had broke and I had someone warming up ready for a jumping lesson. I thought, I'll just go outside and do this lesson before I go to hospital. And then I went out, did the lesson, and then after the lesson, the girl I was teaching said, oh, well, ready to go now. And I said, look, can you do me a favour on the way home? And she said, yeah, sure, what? Can you drop me off the hospital? And she said, oh, yeah, is everything okay? I said, oh, my water's broken and, she was shaking. She couldn't drive me to the hospital, right? So she
Oh,
left her horse at my place. She couldn't even drive me. I had to drive my car down to the hospital, drop myself off, and then she drove my car home. Yeah. Anyway, I suppose that's a bit of resilience, isn't it? A bit of passion. Yeah.
I think that's the great part about horses is they bring out these incredible characteristics and stories we have, and it brings everyone together. And it, age, race, nothing else matters, but you get these stories and they're very Australian, which is another thing to be so proud of.
Yeah.
But, you wouldn't really hear of things like this anymore.
Oh. So just within your business, because you said there's been a few challenges. Now, I don't know if it's come up, because a lot of people go to different areas within the horse industry, and yours is certainly one of them. If you said you were going to have a career with horses exploring the lymphatic system, did people say, no, you can't do that?
Probably I got a lot of blank stares. I got a few, oh, that's interesting.
Being polite, yeah.
Yeah, which I thought, oh, that's a polite way to be for sure. I had a few people that were like, okay, and I'm very lucky. I've got people that will back me, when I can't back myself. I appreciate the people I have in my life. And there was a few that were like, you're gonna have to stick to your guns with this if you're gonna make it. Like, you're gonna have to make some changes about yourself and your beliefs. I had to change my beliefs and about my abilities, about what I could do. And I also had to consider things like getting adequate coverage, not just for myself insurance-wise, but to be able to teach others, which was a very different challenge. And not one that I anticipated. But also, too, businesses post-COVID, especially in a service industry-based field, is quite different to how it was before COVID. But no, look, I had to learn a lot about myself and face myself and, change lots of my habits as well.
So character building as well as getting a new business.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always character development as a horse person, isn't it?
Yeah. Tell us a bit about the type of horses you treat, right? We'll talk about the area a little bit later, but tell me about the age of the horses, the types of horses, the owners of the horses, what they do with the horses. Just tell us a little bit about that, your clients.
For lymphatic therapies, there is no bias in, supporting their lymphatic system. If they're horses that have had chronic cellulitis, they've had continual stocking up, post-surgery, horses that have some poor conformation, so very heavy bodies and very little legs, unfortunately, generally do show signs of a compromised lymphatic system, and horses that are restricted in their movement as well. There is no bias, unfortunately, with lymphatic conditions. They can occur at any time. And normally I'm working with clients that are just looking to help make their horse comfortable, to get their horse sound. Some horses, unfortunately, I am a part of their palliative care, which is, a very confronting thing at times, but something that we do need to think about as owners and therapists. And other times it's about supporting owners that just want to learn something new that can help their arthritic horse that doesn't feel comfortable with a firm massage or needs to be made comfortable just to enjoy their life still.
Yep. Now, Equitana, I think you're speaking, when you're speaking, let me have a quick look on Thursday and Saturday.
Yeah.
Just give us a bit of an overview on what you're going to talk, because I think part of these podcasts are to give people an overview of what's available. They'll look at the schedule and say, oh, yeah, I want to explore that a bit further. I'll go there. I'll find out a bit more from Mel. She's the expert. She knows more about this than I do. So, yeah.
Yeah, so the first talk is about understanding what the lymphatic system is. So what it does, what are the parts of the lymphatic system, and how it functions if it's healthy. And then the second talk, we look at, what can impact the lymphatic system, what it looks like when it's not doing so well, conditions like cellulitis, lymphangitis, and chronic progressive lymphedema, and how that can affect horses.
So if someone would like to find out a bit more about that, and if they've got a horse with lymph problems that they'd like to know a bit more about, and, I think when people specialise in things like this, vets get an overview and then they go into the specialisation. But I think that, you specialise in these areas and you might be able to just give them a bit of information or a bit of extra information that they need. But what about on Saturday? So you're doing something else on Saturday and you're going to talk about the impacts of the equine lymphatic system.
Yeah, so Saturday's talk, we look more into why movement is important for the lymphatic system and why modalities that, are used and applied are going to help horses that do have a compromised lymphatic system. And, start recognising when it might be an issue with the lymphatic system and how to avoid it going downhill very quickly.
Yeah. Mel, before we finish, are there any other questions? Is there anything else that you think our listeners would know, particularly if they're going to Equitana and, they've got I can't remember how many arenas, they've got the classroom, there's quite a lot going on at the same time and they're trying to choose, should I go to the Thursday session or the Saturday session? Who would you say the Thursday session is more for? Just if they say, well, I can only go to one, which one should I go to?
Look, the Thursday one is more aesthetically pleasing from a slideshow perspective. But I think the Thursday one, because the lymphatic system is so unexplored and it's not spoken about, it's a really friendly way to gain confidence in the lymphatic system.
Okay, that's great. Great news. Now, if people would like to contact you before, and everyone knows that we have a page for each person on Horse Chats, and if they want to go to horsechats.com, search for Mel or search for Rowe, then they'll be able to find your details. But Mel, do you prefer text? Do you prefer email? Do you prefer people going to your website? Because all that information will be there. But how would you prefer people contact you?
I don't mind at all. I think for lots of people, if they're trying to explain something that's got a lot of detail, an email is easier.
Mm-hmm.
But also too, my socials are to help give people confidence in asking me questions. And I think we just live in a time now where any way you wish to contact me is fine.
No worries at all. Mel, I'm looking forward to catching up with you at Equitana and, love to have you back on the podcast. I think you're our only lymphatic expert. We've got quite a few experts from right around the world and, all over the horse health and horse care. But lymphatic system, I think you're the only one. I mean, someone's going to correct me if I'm wrong, but we'd love to hear from you again.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a bit of a pleasure to be amongst many great names and not something I expected in my career, that's for sure. But I would love to see you at Equitana, and any questions at any time, please reach out.
If you've enjoyed this chat, then please comment, rate and subscribe. If you'd like any changes or recommendations for guests, then please contact us through horsechats.com. And while you're online, have a look at the government-accredited courses at internationalhorsecollege.com. Registered Training Organisation 31352.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.